What is up, everybody? We got a jam-packed show today. All right. We got a loaded episode. We're talking about, we have more coaching additions. We have coaching not additions. We have people leaving. We have people coming in. We have some more player breakdowns if we can get to them at the end. We have the offseason really officially starting, right? The World Series ending. We're going to talk about what this week could look like. We have a jam-packed show, a lot to get over all today on Locked On Tigers.
You are Locked On Tigers, your daily Detroit Tigers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Tigers. I'm, of course, your host, Scott Bentley. Today is Monday, November 7th, 2022. Thank you for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube. Okay, we have a jam-packed episode. No dilly-dawdling, no wasting time. We're jumping right into it, okay? Because we got a lot to talk about. All right. First up on the docket, Lloyd McClendon will not return to the Tigers organization. Lloyd was the manager of the Toledo Mud Hens. And, you know, he's always found his way back here, right? Like he's always found his way back to the Tigers organization. He's always, you know, he'll leave and then come back and then he'll get promoted and then demoted. And then it just seems like Lloyd's always here somewhere. And he has certainly given this organization a lot of his time, a lot of his effort, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, I am sure. So nothing but respect for Lloyd McClendon. It's just funny. He was, you know, a coach, and then he was like a hot managerial prospect, and then he was a manager, and he left, and he went and he was a man. Well, he was a manager before too, and then after, and you know, at different levels as well, like manager of the minors, manager of the majors, you know, went to Seattle and then came back and was a coach. And then he was the interim manager at the end of the Garden Hire thing. And then he left, but then he came back as a coach of the minors. And then he was the manager of the Mud Hens and like just all over the place. So nothing but respect for Lloyd. Definitely again, a guy who's been here for a long time. Wish him nothing but the best, and whatever he decides to do, whether that's whether that's in baseball or not in baseball, big ups to Lloyd McClendon, and that does leave a vacancy then at Toledo, right? AAA manager, now kind of a vacant position as of the time of this recording. Next up, we have another new assistant pitching coach, which is kind of fun. So Robin Lund has been hired by the Tigers to be a new assistant pitching coach. Now, this is a lot of really fascinating stuff is going on with this one. And I think one of the important things to note is that within this pitching tree led by Chris Fetter, like Juan Nieves was highly regarded, and that's somebody that had the title of assistant pitching coach, and everybody assumes he's coming back, and it was reported that he was going to come back, and everything should be fine there. But you have to remember that in San Francisco, Scott Harris had a boatload of coaches, right? A ton of coaches. And I think AJ made a comment, or maybe it was Scott, or maybe it was both of them, made a comment where like they're not going to get to that size, but it's probably going to be bigger. And it would not shock me at all if they had multiple assistant pitching coaches. Juan Nieves, again, very highly regarded now, especially after the last couple of seasons, and has definitely helped this pitching staff a ton. And I very much, and we all should very much want him to stick around. And it sounds like he will. It doesn't sound like it's a replacement thing at all. But something to I guess keep an eye on. You know, are they both going to be that, or is Nieves maybe going to switch into a different role? It's also important to note that Lund, it is reported by Evan Petzold, the dog, does a fantastic job, that Lund is going to have a focus in biomechanics, which is fascinating. And as Evan Woodbury, also the dog, also does fantastic work for the Tigers beat, pointed out that Lund has a very fascinating bio and resume, as he was a professor in kinesiology for 16 years, coming from the University of Iowa, where he was their pitching coach. This is I love this move. And I know, like, in the grand scheme of things, this is relatively minor, right? But I don't care. I absolutely love this type of move. Like, this type of stuff is the stuff that really gets me excited about the future. You brought in a dude who is a whiz in kinesiology to be your biomechanics, like, all when it comes down to the movement of the body, the mechanics of the body, and the mechanics. I mean, he is a pitching coach too. It's not like he's just a kinesiology professor. Like, he was the pitching coach for University of Iowa, Big Ten program. Like, these are the kind of moves that really get me pumped. I love this kind of stuff. So that's an exciting thing. We'll see how it goes. Again, we're going to keep an eye on what role everybody in that Chris Fetter pitching umbrella ends up getting. Fetter will obviously be the pitching coach, but with Nieves and Lund now both here, it'll be kind of fascinating to see what the titles look like. Not that the titles really matter. Titles don't matter. Look how I sound. But just, you know what I mean? Just a funny thing. Funny? That's not the word. An intriguing story is just what titles they end up having. Okay, so that's it for the coaching staff, people coming in, people leaving. The season is over. Baseball season is officially over. I love this sport so much, and I already can't wait till opening day. Already got my countdown started on my phone. I cannot wait. I like daylight savings, like, it's going to get darker earlier and there's no baseball, and it's just I cannot wait for the World Baseball Classic. Cannot wait for that, and then that will lead us into opening day, and I'm super pumped about the Tigers next season, which I know is ridiculous because, like, we just saw what they did for 162 games, right? But the thing that is going to get me through this offseason and through this dark winter that always finds itself over the state of Michigan, and in between arguing with people about how stupid daylight savings time is and how, like, we need to grow up as a society because, you get an extra hour of sleep while you mad. Yeah, one night. I get an extra hour of sleep one night, and then it's dark at 5 p.m. That's not worth it, okay? Anyway, in between arguments about that with people, and I understand the origins, okay? Don't come at me with facts, all right? This is strictly opinion-based. In between arguments about daylight savings time, the thing that's going to get me through this winter is I am so pumped for this offseason. And I'm not just trying to blow smoke. Like, I am genuinely so pumped. And I'm pumped because it's not just, I really like Scott Harris and I can't wait to see what he's going to do. It's not that. It's the fact that it's going to be a ton. It's going to be a ton, right? Like, it'd be one thing if we brought in a new president of baseball ops or a new GM or whatever, and then we turned around and they made, like, a few moves and the team was largely still the same. And I'm not saying that this team is going to be completely different. I'm not saying they're going to get rid of 30 of the 40-man roster or anything like that. But it's going to be a lot. They're going to get rid of a lot of players. And, like, they have to. Performance. This is a performance-based industry. A lot of the dudes on the 40-man, to be honest with you, that just got, like, their first crack in the majors, there's quite a few of them that are already in their mid or even late 20s now. Like, they're not getting any younger. That you have to for performance reasons, and you also have to because you are getting, 9 or 10 players off the IL that in the next, like, week and a half, you have to find a spot for on the 40-man roster if you want to keep them. The IL is getting dismissed, right? That's how it works. You have to take everyone on your roster, assume health, and make a 40-man roster. And then, later in the offseason, once we get closer to next season, then you can put them back on the IL and refill players on the 40-man with depth pieces or whatever that you acquired. But you have to shave a healthy amount, at least 10, if you want to keep everybody on the IL. That's at least. And that's not even including then the performance players, or, you make a trade for someone at the major league level, or you sign a free agent. There is going to be a ton of turnover. And that is why I am so excited. It's a new regime, it's a new era, it's new leadership, and it's guaranteed turnover. It's not just, we'll see what happens. Maybe he makes a move or two. Let's give him time to warm up and get used to the field. No, he has to hit the ground running because he literally has to. I'm pumped. All right. I'm really excited. Okay, let's get into we'll get into more of like the news and notes that we have. There's a few more again regarding just like free agency and the timetable of everything that I want to talk about. And then afterwards, we will get into a deep dive just on some more players that are kind of fringe to stay on the team. We will do that right after I tell y'all about our friends over at BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for betting football and the start of the new basketball season. Find all the latest developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth analysis on every game. And as always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all your sports wagering information with live betting and up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there. It's the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite games and events, including MLB, MMA, boxing, and even golf. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right. Segment 2 here. Locked On Tigers. Thank you for making us your first listen every day. Greatly appreciate each and every one of y'all. Okay, so right when the World Series ends, players pretty much immediately become free agents, and they can't sign with anyone unless they're re-signing with their own team until 5 days after, right? The World Series ends, but they technically are no longer with the organization immediately. Baseball does not mess around, right? You're a free agent. So officially, only 2 players on the Tigers roster are officially free agents at the major league level. Minor league level, there's plenty of minor league free agents every year because that's a lot of one-year deals. But at the major league level, the only 2 players that are officially free agents and officially no longer on the roster are Daniel Norris, Tucker Barnhart. We already did both of their player breakdowns earlier this offseason. Barnhart was probably a couple weeks ago now, so you can go find that episode. And then Daniel Norris was just last week, I believe. I think I did Daniel Norris's pretty recently. So if you want like the deep dive on those 2 players and whatnot and their stats and what they bring and everything, you can go listen to those. As far as their futures, we can just reiterate really quickly the belief that I have with them. And that's, I don't expect either of these guys to be back in the Tigers organization next year. One of them, Daniel Norris, there is a slimmer of hope if you're like a super big Daniel Norris fan, which there are plenty of those out there because he's a cool guy. There is a slimmer of hope that maybe, did I say a slimmer? A simmer? A sliver? Sliver. What the heck? A sliver of hope. That he's back next season on like a minor league deal. And even then, I'm not sure it would be like a 40-man roster invite right away. It would kind of be like what Willie Peralta was doing for us. I think it would, you're going to start off, and then, if people get hurt or we had people back down the 60-day IL, maybe you can come back that way. I don't know. I wouldn't hold my breath on either of them to come back, to be honest with you. And Barnhart, I am guaranteeing Tucker Barnhart has played his last game as a Detroit Tiger. Yeah. Wish him nothing but the best. It clearly did not work out here. Really just brutal offensive season for him. It's going to hurt his market a little bit. However, he is still a plus defender. He does still throw a lot of runners out. He is still a decent framer. He's going to find a job somewhere, but I think, it's really, you got to feel for the dude just because he went from potentially getting re-signed earlier in the season. If we remember, it wasn't that long ago, in April or whatever, that we were discussing a Tucker Barnhart extension right when he got here. And, always on a one-year deal. If he hits well, maybe he can be like a solid, get a solid contract or whatnot. But now, I think he's more of a backup catcher if he goes to a decent baseball team and, decent backup catcher that's going to be a plus defender for you. So I think that's probably his future. Like I said, Norris is kind of weird. We got to see if there's any major league interest in him because his first half of the season was so different than his second half. Second half was much better. So we'll see what happens with the two of them. But I would be, at this point, pretty surprised if either of them were back. And I am very confident that neither of them will be back on the opening day major league roster for the Detroit Tigers. I'm almost 100% certain in that. So we'll see. But those are the only two players that are officially off the roster as of Sunday. And so that moves us into like what to expect going forward. There's a lot of deadlines. Going forward. First and foremost, November 10th. That's when free agents officially let loose. Free agents can sign with anybody. They can. I'm assuming they can start conversations now. I don't think baseball really has like a big collusion problem. So, or at least they don't care about collusion. I guess I should put it that way. So I think that you can already have conversations, but you can't sign with anybody until November 10th. November 8th through the 10th. So this week will be the GM meetings, not the winter meetings. Those are in December, but the GM meetings. So that'll be fun. Scott Harris will go out to those. Again, I don't know if you'll see any moves during that time like you do winter meetings, but I do expect, maybe the rumor mill picks up or, maybe we find out in a couple of days if a move is made, like, oh, we talked about it at the GM meetings, whatever. So that's something to kind of keep an eye on. What else do we have? November 18th is the last day to non-tender someone. Okay, so that's a big date. The players like Jeimer Candelario. Honestly, a lot of this roster is still eligible to be, they're under team control and are eligible to be then non-tendered, just as they're eligible and assumed most of them to be tendered. But November 18th is the deadline. I would expect a lot of these players to honestly be decided beforehand, especially by kind of early on in free agency, just because there's some that I don't think are very difficult conversations and I think are pretty straightforward on what to do. So that is an important date still. I think like Jeimer is really the big reason why that's an important date, just because he's the biggest, I don't know, question mark maybe. He's like the biggest conversation piece, at least, throughout, who are we going to non-tender and who are we going to bring back and everything that's still under team control. So that's an important date for that. And then, after that, we start getting to like Rule 5 is very end of November. Rule 5 is the very end of winter meetings, which are in December. But again, we'll see throughout the week, like the IL goes away very soon here. The 60-day IL, November 10th, you have to reinstate players from your 60-day IL. So again, we have like 9 or 10 players that ended the season on the 60-day. Guess what? They got to go somewhere. And if you want to keep them around, it's got to be done really quick. I'm recording this on November 6th. You're listening to this on November 7th. We're talking about deadlines that are on November 10th. Like these are days away. So expect a flurry of moves very quickly here. All right. And again, the non-tender deadline is later. So there's some decisions that they could be like, oh, we'll maybe wait and see and hold on to him for now. But, in whatever 4 or 5 days afterwards, they might, change their mind or get their scopes on somebody else and decide that they want to bring them in. So that safety net, right? Hold on to players. There's a ton of stuff they can do to kind of wiggle their way through all the deadlines. But these are all like happening within the next couple of weeks. So we're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to be talking about moves pretty much every day, especially again, as we get closer and closer to the end of this week. I'm going to have to say this now just so that it's known. I can't stay up until 3 a.m. every day. Okay. I can't. I did it during the lockout. I can't do it again. Okay. So I won't be recording these at like noon like I was during the playoffs because I knew that no moves were going to happen. But I can't just sit around all day and wait for a move to happen that might not happen. Like I can't do that. So I have to record these the day before, right? That is why you guys get these episodes on midnight. because I record them the night before, that the day that I'm actually recording for. So if I miss a move and I already have had several people that are like, what the heck, you didn't talk about this or that or whatnot. I promise I am as in the loop as someone can possibly be with this organization. I see all the moves as they happen, and we will talk about all of them. I just need to make it clear that sure it will happen. I'm certain that it'll happen at some point this offseason. I will record an episode. And if it's huge news, then like obviously I'll re-record it and whatnot, right? But there's some moves that I'm just not going to be able to re-record, or like it's going to happen at 11 p.m. or like 1 a.m. and I'm just not going to be able to do it. All right. So just going to put that caveat out there. Okay. I think that's everything for that. The off season's here. I'm super pumped. I just wanted to kind of lay some groundwork for everybody and talk about what we can expect going forward, what has already happened, the stuff that continues to happen, and get everybody this was like a pump up session. I just want everybody to be as excited as I am about this, the next, 7 to 10 days, because there's going to be a lot of stuff happening and we're going to have a great time here talking about it. All right. I cannot wait. Okay. Let's just do our quote unquote deep dives. Again, they're not very deep dives. They're shallow dives today. Because I don't think there's too much of conversations to have with these guys, but I'm trying to get through everybody on the 40 man. I really want to do that before we have so many moves that we're just not going to be able to. So let's get into that, and we'll do that right after this. What is up, everybody? Third and final segment here, Locked On Tigers. Yes, let's get to deep dives. All right, let's do it. First up, we're going to start with Josh Lester. I don't expect Josh Lester to be kept on the 40-man roster through again, like this might be one that's like a little earlier than later. Very cool story. Wish him nothing but the best. Honestly, hope he gets a job. I think he probably will get it, like a minor league deal. I don't think he'll get signed to anybody's 40-man roster, but I think he could find minor league work somewhere. It might even still be here, but he won't be on the 40-man. Like he won't. This is a dude that spent a decade in the minors, 9 years in the minor leagues, and then finally got some major league at bats. And it's really unfortunate that he wasn't able to get his first major league hit, because who knows if he's going to have that opportunity ever again. But just to be able to say, after 9 years in the minors, that you came up and you played in 2 Major League Baseball games is something that 99.9% of human history will never be able to say. So hats off to Josh Lester. Again, wish him nothing but the best. Had a 791 OPS in Toledo in 2022, a 774 OPS in Toledo in 2021. Really crushed the ball in Erie last year, in Double-A last season before getting called up. He's about to be 28 years old. I think that he could get a minor league kind of depth deal somewhere. And I mean, like solid home run totals, 29 home runs in AAA in 2022, like 32 home runs across both levels of the minors in 2021, like has some pop, but not unbelievable walk numbers. Again, like sub 800 OPS in AAA, like nothing wrong with that at all. Will definitely be a depth piece for somebody, I still think. And I don't think his baseball days are done, but I think his days on the 40-man roster for the Detroit Tigers are probably done. I think that's a relatively easy conversation to have with all these moves that are going to happen. So hats off to Josh Lester. Great accomplishment. Really cool story. And definitely wish him nothing but the best. Super cool. Kody Clemens, next up. This one I think is a little tougher. Kody Clemens at the start of this season, Kody Clemens was crushing the ball in AAA. And it got a lot of people pretty excited. And with how poor the offense was at the beginning of the season, people were really going, okay, like we need to get Clemens up here. He had an 862 OPS in AAA this season with a slugging percentage of .535. 13 homers in 60 games. He was solid. He was really, really solid. He was crushing the ball. And so we called him up, and it just didn't really translate. There's really no other way around it. It's not, I don't think it's anybody's fault. And like, really cool guy, but like it just, it didn't translate. 145 batting average, 197 on base percentage, and a 308 slug. That's an OPS of just barely over 500 in 56 games. Ended with the season with 5 home runs, 8 walks on 33 Ks. Just it didn't translate to the major league level. I think this is a really more of a fascinating conversation. So next year, he'll be 27 in May next season. And I know he was a third round pick for you. And I know that, I mean, there was a point where like people were really high on Clemens. And his minor league numbers aren't bad. Like OPS by year, 2018 across 2 different levels at the lower levels, 816. 2019 across 2 different levels, 708 OPS. That's a little low. 2020 didn't, no minor league season because of COVID. 2021, mostly in AAA, 767 OPS. And then this year we already talked about. So it's not bad offensive numbers, but for a dude that next year is going to be his age 27 season and just came off a 500 OPS year, basically, I think that's a tough sell. I think that's a really tough sell to keep on the 40-man roster next season. I expect him to be a casualty of the next 7 to 10 days. I really do. And again, wish him nothing but the best. I think he'll get work somewhere. Somebody will take a chance on him. Who knows the caliber of team? Maybe a good team sees something in him that they think is fixable. Maybe a low-end team sees a third-round pick given up on too soon and takes an opportunity on him. But I don't know. Maybe the market isn't super hot for him. The Tigers can bring him back on a minor league deal. It's not on the 40-man. I don't know. But just, again, objectively talking about the 40-man roster, I fully, honestly expect Kody Clemens to be one of the casualties of the next week or two and whatnot. So Kody Clemens, Josh Lester, Daz Cameron. Let's talk Daz Cameron. I think that this is a toughie. And this is another one that really could go either way. Now, I know that a lot of people are pretty passionate about the fact that Daz Cameron has not gotten a ton of opportunities to make himself heard at the major league level. I know that. I know that narrative is out there. I feel you, okay? And I hear you. And there's probably some truth to it. Because at the end of the season this year, what were we really losing or gaining by Daz Cameron being on the major league roster? And he had some injury stuff this year as well. But I hear you. I really do. In the same breath, he had a 703 OPS in 100 games in AAA this season. He had a 637 OPS for the Tigers in the major league in 2021. 2021 AAA, in the minors in general, I guess, had an 830 OPS. So you saw those sparks in 2021, and a lot of people were pretty excited about him, and he came up, and he had some decent moments. And look, a 629 OPS in 2022 this year in 21 games for the Detroit Tigers. It's less than 75 plate appearances. It's not a big sample size, absolutely. He had a 219 average and a 629 OPS. And I know that the 629 OPS for this team would have been like sadly, not at the bottom of the barrel compared to the rest of the lineup. But look, if they decide to bring Daz Cameron back, fine. Sure. I trust Scott Harris. Let's ride. Let's see what we got in him. I know, again, there was a time where a lot of people were really excited about Daz Cameron. I think I do not expect Daz Cameron to be back. I think that he's also going to be a casualty. Another dude, really like him. He's got a great work ethic. He works hard. He's a really, really cool dude. But I just, with all of this turnover that's coming, I don't expect Daz Cameron to come out of the other side still on the 40-man roster. I really don't. Now, if I had to pick one of these dudes to have the highest odds of staying on the 40-man roster, it would be Daz Cameron. And Lester's really the only dude that if he did come back, I would be absolutely floored. There is still definitely an avenue for Kody Clemens to stay on this roster. There's still an avenue for Daz Cameron. And Kody is kind of in that same conversation with Daz. And like, I had the Derek Hill analogy. Like he's kind of in that conversation too. Just like there's a lot of people in this fan base that are really passionate about some players. And I don't know. I think it's going to be one of those things where if we do let him go, you're going to look back on it at the end of the 2023 season and go, wow, like, again, just the Matt Shepard conversation, really. You're just comparing. Let's compare to the good teams and not compare to ourselves because that's who we're trying to be. All right? Hope that made sense. Okay. I think that's all I got. Thanks for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every day. For your second listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast. From the games that matter from the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports. Go beyond the scoreboard, behind the scenes with local experts and insights only on Locked On. Only that Locked On can provide. Goodness gracious. Locked On Sports Today. It's available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast. I don't know what it is about that sentence. I can never say it well. It really upsets me. Okay. I think that's it. Remember that these dudes are human beings and this is their livelihood. And got nothing but nice things to say about all three of those guys. And wish them nothing but the best in whatever happens. But in predicting what's going to happen to this 40-man roster, I don't see a path where those three guys make it through, to be honest with you. So we'll see what happens. We will know if I'm right or wrong soon enough, right? That's gonna be a quick turnaround, a quick response time on how accurate all of these deep dives and predictions for people staying and going on the roster are going to be. We're going to have our answers pretty soon here. We're finally through the World Series. Great World Series. Philly, nothing but respect. Houston, juggernaut. That's a good organization. That's who we should be comparing everything to. Everything. That's a team that lost Carlos Correa, lost George Springer, lost Garrett Cole over the years, and turned around and made the ALCS every single year of the last, 5 years, and then won a World Series again after losing all those players over the last half decade. That's a juggernaut. That's how you build a consistent winner. And that should be the banging trash cans or whatever. Go ahead, make all the jokes you want. Sure, go for it. But doesn't matter. They're a winner. They're winners, and they have built an absolute, like I said, juggernaut of an organization over there. So, okay, off-season time, baby. It's going to be really fun. I cannot wait. Cannot wait to go through it with y'all. Cannot wait to talk about it every day with y'all. And that's what we're going to do. So peace and love. Going to therapy's dope, and I'll catch y'all tomorrow. Go Tigers.